name's Brittany, or Brie, whichever you want to call me, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about some tips and tricks that may help make your planning for your Disney trip a little bit easier. It might be a little bit long, so I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible, so let's just get into it. Alright, tip number one is pretty obvious, and I'm pretty sure most people just do this anyways, but just in case you don't, I'm going to say it, and that is to have the My Disney Experience app. If you have a smartphone, you need the app. Trust me, it is amazing. Like I said, I'm pretty sure most people already use it, but with the app you can not only check out wait times and if a ride or attraction is down, you can also see your hotel reservations, your park reservations, if there are extra magic hours at that park, your dining reservations, and just a ton of other stuff. So I highly recommend having the app. Alrighty, tip number two, and I kind of mentioned this in the last tip, is to use a travel agent. A lot of times I'm asked by family and friends how I am able to afford to go as often as I do, and that is because I use a travel agent. For one, it just makes planning easier and you don't have to try to do it all yourself and worry if you've forgotten anything, but also it's cheaper than just doing everything yourself. A lot of times travel agents can find deals or discounted prices that you might miss or might not even just be able to see, but they can because they are a Disney travel agent, and it'll just save you so much money in the long run. It also is a stress off of yourself because you don't have to worry about getting the hotel or getting the park tickets or reservations, dining reservations, or anything. You pretty much just tell them what you want and they will let you know if you got it or not, or what modifications they had to make and everything, and you just pay it right through them and you don't have to worry about like paying here and paying there. The only thing they won't do is planes usually, but that's pretty easy to do on your own. Alrighty, tip number three is something that a lot of people do not know, and it's how far ahead you can plan your next Disney trip. And you can plan up to a year ahead, which means you have 11 months to pay for it, which is another reason I'm able to go more often than most, is because, like I said, you have 11 months to pay off your trip. Because you have to pay off your trip a month before you go, so if you plan a year ahead, you have 11 months to pay for it. You plan 6 months ahead, you have 5 months to pay for it, and so on. So I highly recommend doing a year ahead if expenses are like a big thing for you, because instead of having a month or 2 or 3 to pay for it, you have almost a year. So if you can plan a year ahead, I highly recommend doing that, especially if you're someone who isn't going to go super often, or like I said, has trouble with the expenses. That way you have a longer time period to pay for it. Alrighty, tip number four is to stay on property. I know some people prefer to stay off of property because it's cheaper, but I personally love to stay on property, and I think it has way more benefits than staying off just for a little bit more money. When you stay off property, you do save money on the hotel, but then you do have to pay for transportation to get there, and you don't get some of the same benefits that you would staying on property. When staying on property, you have transportation to your hotel right to any of the parks and Disney Springs, which is fantastic, whether that be via bus, Skyliner, monorail, or boat. There is transportation there, and it does not cost anything extra. Another benefit to staying on properties is extra magic hours. I love extra magic hours so much. It is just for people staying on property. So if you are not staying on property, or you're just visiting for the day or whatever, they cannot go to extra magic hours. Only people staying on property can. Which means there is a lot less people, and means you can get on those rides that you may have to wait an hour or more for during the day. You can get on them a lot quicker. I remember one day me and my uncle stayed during the magic hours at Magic Kingdom, and we were able to ride Big Thunder Mountain like 3 times. Plus 2 other rides in those 2 hours. So highly recommend staying on property for that reason. The way you can see magic hours is right on the My Disney Experience app, or if you're staying at the hotel and put it on the channel that we all love with the big pretty castle and everything. It shows the hours for the day. It will say extra magic hours right there. It's not at every single park every single day. A different day has a different park, and again, not every single day there is going to be one. Most of the time they are after the park closes, but there are some occurrences where they are before the park opens. So definitely look at that and keep that in mind while you're planning too, is see if you are able to go to those parks on the days the extra magic hours are. That way you don't have to park hop or anything like that. While speaking of staying on property, if you do, I highly recommend checking out the transportation options before you get there or right as you get there. That way you know what your hotel has and what you will need to take in order to get to the parks. Some only have buses, some have buses and Skyliner, some have buses and boats, and some have buses and the monorail. So definitely check out your transportation options before you get there, or that first day you get there before you go to a park. That way you know what is the easiest and fastest way to get to and from your park. Another little tip that I don't think a lot of people know is that when you buy a ticket, you also need to buy a park reservation, which is another reason I suggest going through a travel agent, because then they can just do it all in one go, where if you do it by yourself, you kind of have to do it separately. I'm not entirely sure how it works, unfortunately, just because, again, I always go through a travel agent and highly recommend that. But if you're not going to, just know that when you buy a park ticket, you need a park reservation. If you don't have a park reservation, then even if you have a park ticket, you will not be able to get into the park most likely. So just keep that in mind. Speaking of reservations, make sure you set them up as soon as possible, whether that's dining or just your hotel, whatever. Set them up as soon as possible. Like I said before, you can set up your whole trip a year ahead if you want to. Dining reservations you can't set up that soon, but if you want somewhere you specifically want to go, whether it's Ohana's or whatever, make sure you set that up as soon as possible just to make sure you can get in there. And speaking of Ohana's and food and everything, dining plan, if you can do it, do it. They just started offering again as the time I am filming this. It hasn't been available since before everything happened in 2020. If you can do the dining plan, definitely do it. It will save you money in the long run, and it's just way easier. And if you have Magic Bands or just the little like card park passes, it goes right through there. Food can be expensive down there, and having the dining plan just makes it way easier. I don't know if they're still doing the same too that they did before everything, or if they changed them a little, but if they are like the ones before, both the sit-down dining plan and the quick service dining plan are far worth the money. Again, they will save you money in the long run. It may sound expensive when you see the price, but if you actually totaled out what you would need for your whole trip, especially if it's a longer trip, then it's definitely worth it. If you're just going for a shorter trip, you might not need it, but if you're going for a week or more, I definitely recommend doing it. Again, I know I keep saying this, but it will save you money in the long run, and it is just a lot easier, and that is something your travel agent can set up as well. If you are not having a travel agent, I'm pretty sure you can still do it, no problem, but you can always call and ask Disney if you have any questions about it. My next tip is to make a packing list. I'm going to do a more in-depth video about that soon, about what's on my packing list and what I pack when I take to Disney and everything, so keep a lookout for that if you want it. But I highly recommend making one and go into details and everything, right down to the specific amount of pairs of socks you want to bring and everything, just to make sure you don't forget anything. Disney pretty much has everything you would need down there in case you did forget something, but it will obviously be more costly than if you just got it or brought it from back home. So highly recommend making one just to make sure you don't bring anything you won't need and to make sure you bring everything you do. My next two tips are once you are actually there at Disney and everything. On your park days, I highly recommend talking with your party about what ride or show that you really want to do the most. That way, if it's a day where the lines happen to be longer and you don't get to do a ton, at least you got to do everybody's favorite thing. So make favorite rides, favorite shows, or even favorite restaurants a priority. Do those first and then do everything else. And finally, my last little tip is to make sure you have both cash and cards on you while you are there, especially if you are going to be doing a sit-down restaurant where you will need to leave a tip. It's a lot easier to leave a cash tip than a card tip, I have realized, especially if you are going with a big party where you want to split the bill and split the tip. It's easier to do cash rather than, you know, try to split it between cards or whatever. And then obviously cards are easier to use just everywhere else. That way you don't have to carry around a wad of cash. So that's probably a really obvious one, but just in case you didn't think of bringing cash, bring a little bit, just in case, again, for tips, or maybe in case your card doesn't work, you have a backup option. Alrighty, so that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed these 10 little tips and tricks that I use that make the planning a lot easier and a lot better. So I hope you guys really liked this video and found it helpful. I plan on doing a few other Disney videos before I go, as well as vlogs while I'm down there. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you get notified whenever those upload. I'm going to try to be posting every Friday, so just keep a lookout for that. Also make sure you like this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!